What is up, YouTube? Case Prime here, back at you with yet another video. This time I'm doing kind of a response video. My friend Josh, who I've talked about countlessly here on YouTube, just recently did a video where he talked about his top 10 favorite TV shows. And he encouraged his subscribers, myself included, to do the same with their videos, either to comment down below with their top 10 shows or to upload a video. So I thought instead of just commenting, I would upload my own video of my top 10 favorite TV shows. Now, unlike my other top 10 lists I've done videos, yeah, that sounded completely ass backwards, there are a few honorable mentions to this list. Now, for this list, I am looking at TV shows I have watched throughout the course of my entire life. I'm not limiting them just to my childhood or when I became a grown adult. I'm considering all TV shows I've watched since I was born and now to this current day. There is one show, however, that I have intentionally excluded because it's a very sensitive show, at least to the point where if I reveal I'm a fan of the show, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail, so I'm not telling you what that show is. If you know what that show is, good for you. Feel free to guess, but I'm not telling. It's not on this list. So, good luck guessing. Anyway, the honorable mentions are Duck Dynasty, Game of Thrones, and Supernatural. Duck Dynasty I thought was a really cool show, but then again, after a while, I realized I don't live the redneck lifestyle, so it's not really the show meant for me. Game of Thrones, I love that show. It's almost like if Lord of the Rings was given an HBO quality take, you know, because of all the profanity and the violence and the sexual innuendos and content. And Supernatural, a friend of mine got me hooked on that show a few years ago, and I still haven't finished it. We're into the 12th or 13th season, I'm still not done with the show on Netflix. I kind of gone jumping around watching various episodes. I don't go in chronological order. I really need to. But yeah, Supernatural is also on the honorable mentions list. But let's jump right into the list, shall we? Kicking things off at number 10 is a show I loved as a child, and that is Thomas the Tank Engine. Little lesser known fact about me, when I was growing up, I loved trains. I love trains. There were two vehicles I loved as a kid. Trains and helicopters. So, a TV show about talking trains was right up my alley. I grew up personally with the old school series when they used actual model trains to make the show, and when people like Ringo Starr and George Carlin and Alec Baldwin were the narrators. Before they switched to CGI, I think in the late 2000s. I don't know when they made the transition from models to CGI. I've watched several episodes of the CGI series, and the CGI series is decent, I will give it that much. I think, personally, the best things that come out of the CGI renditions are the episode No More Mr. Nice Engine, and the movie The Great Race that came out 2 years ago. I think those are personally the best things that come out of the CGI renditions of the show, and maybe a couple of other episodes. The one thing that annoyed me about that show growing up as a kid is that when they used the models, I was really annoyed when I didn't see the characters' mouths moving when they talked. And didn't like the fact that there was just a narrator reading off a script. So that's kind of why I kind of watched the more CGI episodes more than the old episodes. I watched the old episodes for nostalgia's sake, the ones I grew up with as a child. At least where I could find them on YouTube. Mainly it's the new episodes that are on YouTube right now, but it was still a great show that I loved as a kid. Number 9, I blame my science teacher for getting me into this show, and that is The Big Bang Theory. This is one of those shows that just, once I got into it, it changed my life. It's just one of those shows I can relate to. You know, my high school science teacher, she had a bobblehead of Sheldon, still in the box, up in one of the shelves of her classroom, and I'd always look up at that bobblehead during downtime in class, and I'd be, wonder what if I'd like that show. So during Thanksgiving break, that same year, I finally sat down, I DVR'd a couple episodes, and I watched them. And I instantly fell in love. The 2 episodes I watched was the one where Sheldon gets his World of Warcraft account hacked, and the one where Penny and her boyfriend cosplay as the Justice League with Sheldon and the gang. The one where Raj dresses up like Aquaman riding a seahorse. I was watching a clip from that episode last night. I still laugh at that episode. Also, one of my other favorite episodes is the one where Raj tries to get into a relationship with Siri. And the one with the robot, Monty. That's just a good show, and my mom says I remind her of Sheldon, and I can kind of see why, but there are ways where Sheldon and I are different, and I'm kind of more like Leonard. I've watched a couple episodes of Young Sheldon, but I didn't have the type of childhood Sheldon did. I wasn't in high school when I was a little kid. Not at least when I was 9, but still, Young Sheldon's good. Number 8, Family Guy. Now this is a show I have watched for a long time, even before I was allowed to watch it. Back in the day, when I was going to bed at night as a kid, we'd sneak over to Adult Swim and watch one of the cartoons that they were airing as part of the first bit of the block. And the shows they were usually airing were Futurama and Family Guy. Family Guy is one of those shows I got into when I was younger, when I probably should have gotten into when I was older. And it's still a classic show. I don't know why they ever canceled it, but Seth MacFarlane's a unique comedian with his animation, with his choice of jokes and setup of comedy. He's just a unique individual. I'd love to meet the guy one day, maybe buy him a drink. You know, if I'm ever bored and I want to relive, moments from middle school and high school, I just watch Family Guy clips. I'm not caught up on the show. There's several episodes I haven't seen, but I don't know if they air new episodes on Cartoon Network anymore. I don't have a DVR, at least anymore. But either way, I love Family Guy. Good show. Number 7, and this is a show that I watched a lot, and that is Man vs. Food. And I specifically lean toward the first 3 seasons that were hosted by Adam Richman. I count Man vs. Food Nation as a separate series, and I don't watch the current series with that new guy, Casey Webb. I don't know what it is, but I just don't like him as the host. I'm so used to Adam Richman. Of course, he's lost a ton of weight since he has stopped doing eating competitions. But that show really piqued my curiosity in food. Maybe want to travel to go to restaurants that I want to try. The only restaurant from Man vs. Food I've actually been to is the Ben's Chili Bowl in Washington, D.C. Their chili half-smokes really were delicious. And I actually told them I came there because of Man vs. Food. I didn't sit at the booth that President Obama sat at. Although I did see the table. I didn't sit there. But yeah, great show. Some cities I really want to visit were featured on that show, and some restaurants I really want to try. I have a whole top 10 list of that, so if you want me to upload that, drop a comment. Number 6, another show I loved when I was a child, Zaboomafoo. Oh my gosh, I loved Zaboomafoo as a kid. Of course, by the time I was watching it, it was in the early 2000s, after all of its episodes had been produced, and they were just airing it in syndication and reruns on PBS Kids. But it was still a great show. That was what taught me the idea of puppets. Like, I used to think that, Zaboomafoo shows up to Animal Junction, Chris and Martin feed him a snack, and then he comes to life. That was when I actually finally learned this is why my tongue stops working, about puppets. Because I thought that was the actual lemur talking. I didn't realize the understanding of ventriloquism and puppetry. And also, I didn't watch Sesame Street, because I was creeped out by puppets a lot as a kid. At least ones where the mouse didn't move. But I love Zaboomafoo. Really got me and my brother interested in animals as a younger kids. We used to call each other Chris and Martin. I remember one time when I was a kid, we bought a Zaboomafoo VHS tape at Walgreens after a doctor's appointment, and we were singing the Zaboomafoo theme song on the way home. That's like one of my earliest memories. I remember it was raining that night, too. Long time ago. I think this was back in, 2002, 2003. I want to say 2003. But yeah, Zaboomafoo, great show. Number 5, Comic Book Men. Now, this is a show on AMC that I tuned into. Not The Walking Dead, not Breaking Bad. I tuned in for Comic Book Men. I'm all about the Fat Man on Batman and his secret stash. I love seeing those crazy, unique items come through the store, and the shenanigans that Walt, Brian, Ming get into, and Zach, or Mike. it's almost like a nerd version of Duck Dynasty. Like, the Jay and Silent Bob Secret Stash is Duck Commander. Kevin Smith is Phil. Walt Flanagan is Willie. Brian is Jace, and Mike and Ming are like Cy and Jep, or Godwin and John. I don't know, it's been a long time since I watched Duck Dynasty. I don't remember all their names, but still, I love comic book men. Me being because I love comic books, as I'm affiliated with comic books, that's a show that's right up my alley. I really wish the show was still on Netflix. Season 3 was on Netflix for a while, but they took it off, and it still pisses me off they won't bring it back. Alright. Number 4, Transformers Animated. I've watched almost every single Transformers cartoon that's come out, all the way from Generation 1 up to Rescue Bots. Now, I didn't watch the recent series of Robots in the Skies. I did not watch every episode of that because I kind of lost interest in it. But Transformers Animated was that one cartoon I remember watching when I was in middle school, and even to this day when it was when tongue stops, we're going to lose my train of thought. When it was airing from 2008 to 2009, I remember tuning in every morning at 11:30 on Cartoon Network, getting my breakfast ready, and watching that show as I, started my Saturday mornings. And I remember it was on the nosebleed time slot on Cartoon Network at 6 a.m., so as I was getting up for school in the mornings to wait for the bus, I'd be sitting in bed watching Transformers Animated reruns. I just loved that show so much. And that's also kind of when I developed my crush on Tara Strong, even though she's, kind of married with kids, so awkward. I hope Tara's not watching this. Anyway, moving on. Number 3, Firefly. Oh my gosh, do I love Firefly. I did a video review on the series a couple years ago. I remember I discovered it from a Watch Mojo video. I googled it completely out of curiosity, I rented it from the library, and 2 weeks later, I'm in love. I love Firefly. It's one of those shows, if they're rebooting a whole bunch of old series, well, why don't they bring back Firefly? Of course, that would be kind of hard to do with what happened to Wash and Shepard in Serenity, which I have not reviewed, and I haven't watched it in a long time. I really feel like Serenity created more questions than answered with finishing off Firefly. I feel like in Serenity, that was a whole 2 seasons worth of content right there. Like, they could have gone more in depth with the Reavers, and they could have gone more in depth with Simon and, River at the medical institution where she got all screwed up in the head. That was a whole 2 seasons worth of movie right there that you could have made instead of a movie. You could have just made another 2 seasons. Of course, I do understand Joss Whedon's reason for doing it as a movie instead of another 2 seasons. And it is a shame we'll never probably get a reboot or something like that with... I mean, they could. I'm sure Nathan Fillion would love to step back into tight pants, and... then again, they would probably have to get someone younger to play, River, because Summer Glau has gotten much older. She's not at the same age she used to be. And of course, Ron Glass, who played Shepard, has died a couple years ago. God rest his soul. But I still love Firefly. I'm still a browncoat. I wish I still had my Jane head. It's in storage. I'd be wearing it during the winter months. Number 2, Impractical Jokers. Oh my gosh, do I love this show to death. Every Thursday night on True TV, I tune in to see a new episode. I'm always laughing along with the Jokers. I've joined Q's Motorcycle Club, the Four Color Demons. I listen to his podcast, Tell Him Steve Dave. It is just a great show. Hidden camera comedy. And, I'm surprised that they haven't been recognized by now. I mean, the show's going on for what? Its 8th season? And people are still in New York and New Jersey and they don't recognize the Jokers? I mean, how is that possible? Especially considering the fact they've done, 2 or 3 live specials with punishments. Yeah, they did the Walking the Wire in 2015, and then they did the Nitro Circus in 2016. I don't remember if they did a live punishment last year. But still, it's just one of those shows that I love. If I ever have a bad day, or I need to binge watch a show, I have every season on DVD so far. I've gotten every season on DVD for Christmas up to this point. If I ever need something to binge watch when I'm sick or I'm home alone, I'll just grab a season, pop it in the DVD player, and off I go. And finally, number one, this should come as no stranger to any of you, but number one is Ed, Edd n Eddy. I am 22 years old. I started watching that show when I was 8. 14 years later, I am still watching that show. I love it that much. I mean, I have the first 2 seasons on DVD. I have the first ever DVD released. I bought it when it first came out in 2005. That had 6 episodes on it. 3 from season 1, 3 from season 2. Really still hoping that they release the rest of the series here on DVD in America. I mean, I've talked to Sam Vincent on Twitter, asking some of my burning questions. I have Tony Sampson as a friend on Facebook, but I've left him alone since he was retired from the voice acting industry. I don't want to bother him. I don't pester him for autographs or fan mail. I have talked to Samuel Vincent a couple times on Twitter. And I have Danny Antonucci also as a friend on Facebook, and I follow him on Instagram. But that's just a show I loved as a kid. Like, it's that show that the minute I came home from school, that was the first thing I wanted to do was watch Ed, Edd n Eddy. You know, I loved that show. I wish that merchandising was big back then, because I probably would have a ton of it than I do. I mean, I got the 3 DVDs, I have my Plank plush. Somewhere, I have the Misadventures game for the PS2. Unfortunately, I don't have a PS2 to play it on anymore. But I still have it somewhere. That was just my show as a kid. I even write fan fiction. I have a personal fan fiction series I've been writing for about 10 years now that's set in the Ed, Edd n Eddy universe. That's how much that show means to me. It's just my show. You know, it's just what I have. So, yeah. That's pretty much my top 10. What are your top 10 favorite shows? Guess that's about it. Later, guys. I am out of here.